Perfect. So we'll go ahead and go over the business model. I guess we're going to start with CVP. So their value proposition was really just running dresses to the women that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. So at first they kind of just focused on like the 20s to 30s range, just because those were typically the kind of women that couldn't afford the designer dresses for the one event. Did you all have anything else for the value proposition?
I was actually surprised how relatively affordable it is to rent a designer dress. I always thought that designer dresses like in the thousands of dollars, but I believe it said somewhere it was like $75 to $100 or something, and a $5 insurance fee and $14-15 for shipping. So not that I would be excited if my wife spent that much on a dress she would have to send back. But I still think for a special event, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, especially compared to what other people will pay for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how their first, like the value that they brought as a company, they're focusing on bringing dresses that people normally wouldn't be able to wear to a different crowd. And that was like their initial, but I like how they kind of catered it more to, we're not really just adding dresses, because they went more for the emotion that the girls had in having those dresses and being able to wear them and how they look. So I think that's what they kind of switched their value. The value they brought was more than just the dress. It was how the dress made them feel. At least that's what I got out of the case, which I thought was interesting, because when you play on people's emotions, it can have a lot stronger of an impact and an influence on them, which I think is why they were so loyal and had so much demand at the beginning. When they were doing the test before, when they were asking people, and one of the girls was like, I feel so good and I feel confident in this, and then that's when they're like, okay, that's what our business model needs to be, is we're trying to bring value into their life by bringing self-confidence and self-esteem to them. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, one thing that surprised me, if I remember right, when they tried it at the first college, they would let the girls put the dresses on, but they had less than, I want to say it was like 30 or 40% people signing up to rent dresses. But then when they went to the other college, they didn't let them put it on, but they brought more, I guess, popular designs or something like that. And didn't they have like a 80+ sign up rate?
Yeah, I think it was like 75% for Yale versus Harvard.
So I just thought that was funny that, the one where they let the girls put the dress on, and that's where the girl said, hey, I look great. It was half, than the one where they didn't let them put it on. I wonder how that could be explained.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting that is the way it worked out. But I almost wonder if by trying it on, they got their fill of it and then didn't have a desire to rent it. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I'm not quite sure why that would happen. But I guess, I don't know. Sometimes you just want things that you can't have at the moment. So I don't know. Well, I guess let's move on to the next one, the GTM. What I got from it was mostly just their marketing efforts, and then the word of mouth and referrals. So I think it was roughly 60-40 for marketing versus referrals. So I thought they did a good job on marketing, but I don't think they would be able to survive without that word of mouth and referrals, because I think they had a higher conversion rate among referrals than just straight up marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they were really smart to go the referral rate way, because it's kind of a risk-free way to do it, you know, because you already have that first customer. So by offering her a credit, you know she's going to stay and order in the future, and hopefully she can bring one or two other people. But it also goes to, you know, people trust word of mouth advertisement a lot more than they trust anything they see on the internet. So if your friends already tried the service and they like it, you're going to trust them over, you know, just seeing an advertisement to rent high-end dresses online. You might be a little more suspicious of it. So I think they did a really good job of marketing it. And obviously, by the amount of business they got, enough people knew about it. So I think they did fairly well going to market with their, as far as planning. I think that one of the biggest issues, kind of, it goes back to the quality of their site as well as the amount of their inventory. But I mean, they couldn't have done much about that without foreknowledge, you know. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think word of mouth to me would make the most sense in this kind of niche. You know, I'm not sure how much online advertising or AdWords or print advertising would bring in regards and compared to word of mouth. You know, if you have a great experience for the customer and you have this friendly service and these what is it called, stylists or whatever, I mean, you really can't lose.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they've done a good job with marketing. So I guess just moving on to TOM. What I got from this is just targeting kind of younger people who couldn't afford the designer dresses, and then running them out at 10 to 15% of retail price of the dress. And then obviously you have the insurance and the shipping, but they keep returning them in good condition, they'll just run them out again. I thought it was a pretty effective business model. There definitely could be some improvements in it, but I thought it was very solid.
yeah, I really like how they marketed it to the fashion designers. Obviously, they kind of tweaked it a little bit to where, because at first they weren't too thrilled about it. But I like how they mentioned something to the effect of, imagine a 25-year-old representing your brand instead of a 45-year-old. So that was, they're appealing to both. So now they have the younger generation that can be loyal to that brand the rest of their life, you know. And so I thought that was really interesting, the direction they took that, and that's something I definitely wouldn't have thought of. So they definitely were thinking out of the box as they took it to the fashion designers.
Yeah. Austin, did we lose you again?
No, I'm still here.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm a little gun shy now.
Did you want to say anything about the TOM, Herb?
So what does TOM stand for?
It I forgot what it was. It's let me get it again here. Target operating model. So from what I got from it, it was just kind of the model of the business and how it ran.
I mean, the only thing I could see there is that they were overwhelmed by the demand. That's probably the biggest shortfall. Once they got up and running, once the website was done, and they were up and running, they had a hard time keeping up with the demand.
For sure. Yeah, totally.
You know, and so designer dresses, that's not where designer just makes them by hand, and everything is a custom fit, right? Designer models is kind of off the shelf, but a higher quality,
high-end stuff.
right? Okay. Yeah, so then I don't quite understand why it would take them so long to increase their inventory. I mean, that should just be, you know, just like any I don't know, Nordstrom or Saks Fifth Avenue or something, they should be able to just place an order with these designer labels and get some extra dresses shipped.
And it really didn't take them too long to increase their inventory. I think by January they had increased it to 1,000, and then by April they'd increased it to 5,000. So, I mean, they did it fairly quickly, but obviously not quickly enough to meet the rush of
Holiday demand.
holiday demand. Yeah.
And I'd also imagine with their inventory, there would be a lot of just kind of turnover because new styles come in. So I'd imagine that, you know, well, I think we'll talk about this a little later, just about kind of the break-even point of dresses. But I would imagine that it might within the year it might become less, be worth less because it isn't in fashion anymore.
Right, exactly.
Well, I guess we'll end with abbreviations with the CFF. I believe this is about the cash flow. So that's what I put for this. So I think just kind of going back to the beginning of the article, they had enough cash flow to get them through spring 2011. And that was budgeting in with necessary, hiring the necessary people that they need in the future and keeping up with inventory. So I think on a cash basis, they're doing okay. I can't imagine that they've burned through all their 1.75 million yet.
I mean, one thing they didn't address in this case study, and you just brought it up, is what happens the next season, right? With these dresses that are kind of now becoming what do you call it, out of style.
Yeah.
Are they selling them? Do they offer them? You know, do they have a liquidation service that's not affiliated with their site, so they don't really dilute their own brand? I mean, how do they? So 10%. So if you rent a dress 10 times, it pays for itself. But they didn't really give any information how many times each dress, each size, actually rented out.
Yeah, they kind of left that up to interpretation.
Yeah. So then, do they send it back to the designer and they get partial credit? You know, how does that? How do they liquidate that asset? I mean, I know they paid wholesale prices, right? So if they list a $1,000 dress and they charge $100 for a 4-day rental, they probably only paid $500, maybe $600, but they didn't really put that in there, what their markup was and what their profit was. So it's hard to make a judgment call on cash flow when you really don't have the financial data.
Yeah, and then I thought it was interesting because the real question of this analysis is, do they go back and seek more investments so that they can increase their inventory and increase their operating, or do they just focus on operational effectiveness? So that kind of shows that their cash flow can either sustain them to improve themselves, but it can't really sustain them to expand rapidly. So, I mean, it depends on what they decide to do to really understand where their cash flow is. And like you said, Herb, it's hard to know exactly, because they did spend a lot in January through April in purchasing 5,000 dresses. You know.
Yeah.
We don't know how much they've got in return for that yet.
Yes.
I just noticed it says that in the next question, question number 5, how often do they need to rent it to break even? And does it say how many times the average dress has been rented in the first 2 months? I don't remember anything.
I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's just, I think that's on next question, just the break even.
Right. But it kind of leads into this, you know. I have to agree with Landon. If the way the question is posed, I think Landon is right on. So it's implying that if they keep everything the way it is, they have enough money to improve their efficiency and their internal processes. But if they want to expand inventory, they have to raise another round of funding. So with that said, I would say they should focus on improving their business model and their production and quality control. Because once that is in place, then the engine is running, and then you can pour more fuel on the fire. And you know, if that requires additional funding, so be it. But I think they need to get everything behind the scenes fixed first.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I was thinking as well. With that, I was kind of torn at the beginning, but I just don't think it'd be a good idea for them to raise more capital. And I feel like the venture capitalists as well, they were really encouraging them to raise.
Yeah,
more.
they were definitely saying, come back and let's give you more money,
Right, and then I was kind of reading it over, and it was the whole reason that they were backing them up is because they missed out on an opportunity with like a gourmet shopping online or something, and so they had to get their numbers up. So I was kind of looking at it from their perspective, and they just want to keep their numbers up for the year, the quarter, whatever. So I don't feel like they really have the business's best interest in heart when they're recommending that.
Right.
Also, remember, if they raise more capital, they also have to give up more equity, which means in effect they're giving up more power, right? So once they get below 50%, now your investors can tell you what to do because they own the majority of the company. So you wanna stay as strong. You want to stay in the 60+% range of equity. So in fact, you are making the decision, and you are steering that ship. I mean, you're the company founder. You're the one with the vision. You're the one who understands what you want to be in 2, 3, 4 years. But once you get so much outside capital in that you lose that majority, now they can tell you what your company's future is going to be.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely, yeah. Wouldn't be good to lose out on the equity.
I don't think it said how much
Yeah.
equity they gave up, did it?
I don't believe it did.
No, it didn't tell us how much equity they gave.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump back and then we'll move forward again a little bit. So let's go to what does it mean to validate a business model? So I just put just to confirm something, kind of like a hypothesis that you had when you're starting the business. So I guess you kind of know when it's validated when that hypothesis is either proven or disproven. What do you guys think?
You're spot on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that to validate your business model means like you've demonstrated that there's value in what you're doing in the market and that your customers are satisfied. So I feel that that's the most important part. If you're satisfying your customers' needs, then you've nailed the business model. So
Yeah, they almost over-validated, right?
yeah.
Yeah, they definitely like to constantly validate themselves. I remember it was after the first two they did the kind of testing the market at Harvard and Yale, and then they decided to do the third one. So they really like to validate that. So I guess the next question: which elements are validated, and then what evidence do you have to support your position?
Well, I think the first part, that there's an obvious demand for it is validated. Their initial process and way of achieving their goals, I think they had to change that up a little bit, especially with how they pitched it to the designers. But I think they, like I said before, they did a really good job of navigating and switching where they needed to. So I think for sure the demand, the market, the idea has been validated. But then as of right now, I think they have a lot more to validate, but that's more in terms of the nitty gritty of their business model in terms of really what we're going to get into next of what's their next step, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and with the third attempt at trying to get to figure out if women would rent dresses online, you know, they came in at just a measly 5%, which I think validated the model, but maybe that was also part of the reason that they did not stock enough dresses because,
Right, yeah.
you know, I think success actually was greater than the 5% from their initial online trial.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that might have thrown them off as far as numbers and assumptions.
You're absolutely right.
For sure. I think that they're just like you're saying, her just validated in their marketing. As far as I think of a waiting list of 50,000 people for these dresses, and that's just incredible on the marketing side. You know, that you'll
Yeah.
have these people that are willing to wait to receive this business proposition. So now we'll just kind of we've already done the if they should increase their operational effectiveness or invest in new inventory. So let's go on to the final one, which is just going to be if just the numbers of how many times does a dress need to be rented in order to break even, and how many times has an average dress been rented during the 2 months of operation? What do these results imply about the viability of the business? So in my numbers, I got that it was 7 point something, but it was roughly 8 times to break even, and they get about 10 yearly rentals. That kind of seemed problematic to me because it's kind of it's cutting it close, and like we talked about before, what the real life of these dresses is as far as fashion goes. I'm not sure if that's a whole year. So if it is a whole year, that could definitely be a problem.
I got the same number for the number of times. I think it was 7.6, so they needed 8. I don't know how I can't remember exactly how I calculated it, but for my annual number of rentals, I got it 45. I did that based off of the fact that they were completely rented out, so I knew that they had rented at least 800 dresses the first month. And then the second month they had decreased it to the waiting list of 5,000. So I assumed that they rented out the rest of those dresses as well. And then I used the numbers of each rental was used for the process, took 8 days. Then I got something like there were 3.75 rentals in 1 month, which would mean, you know, 8 some rentals per 2 month period. So that's how I got it, but you know, I don't know exactly. Those were I assumed based off of the information in the text that every dress was rented because they had a shortage. And based off of those numbers, using the model that was given, uh, that each dress was rented for 8 days and then it could be re-rented. You could get
How did you guys get?
three.
How did you guys get to 7.5 times? I came to 3.8 times.
Let me pull up my Excel sheet here.
Because the revenue was $90, variable cost 31, so it means profit should be $59. If a dress cost them $226, it's 226 divided by 59. Unless I got my wires off again, which is possible.
So I think because they specifically said that they sent 2 dresses for every rental, so the effective cost per rental was double the cost of the dress, which would
Point.
cost 7.6.
It pays to be in your 20s. Good point. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, but as far as I actually had a little bit of different assumptions than Landon as far as the amount rented out, which is probably why our numbers differed. I assumed that they weren't able to meet the capacity since they only had, I think they raised it to 1,000, but 50,000 waiting list for a certain amount of time. For one night, I didn't think they'd be able to rent all of them out. So I just rented out the available amount of dresses that they had. But again, these numbers were a little vague, so I had to.
Yeah,
I took some.
hard. But I mean, yeah, both ways make sense because without more information, it could easily go either way. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, that sounds good. Is there any last? Do you guys want to do a summary here?
um, I'll just say this. When I first did my pre-discussion poll, I think I did it the day before yesterday. I originally said that they should focus on their organizational effectiveness and just kind of do slow improvements. Or excuse me, the opposite. I said that they should expand, and my reasoning was because I felt that they might lose a lot of loyalty in customers if they continued to have a huge waiting list. So that was kind of my reasoning. But the more I've thought about it, and especially as we've discussed tonight, especially with what Herb said in regards to equity, I do think that they should slowly improve their operational efficiency because once that gets going, as long as they can keep a customer base, which I think they can because the demand's there, I think that would be the most effective and the smartest move because then they can remain in control of their company, and they can have a system that operates smoothly, so they will have higher customer satisfaction. So yeah, my opinion did change a little bit, so I appreciate your insights, guys.
Yeah, mine was the same way. Actually, earlier today, I did the pre-discussion poll, and I put same thing as you. Said they should increase their inventory, and now now it's definitely the effectiveness, just improving that.
Yeah, because in the beginning, it's so hard as an entrepreneur. You want to make sure you make every customer happy and you don't lose a single sale. You're chasing every single sale, every customer. You're going to chase them even when they walk out the door. You're going to run after them and try to make some money off of them. But with that comes an investment on the back end. You have to have that inventory on hand, and especially in the rental business, which is so hard. You got to make sure you have the right numbers.
Yeah.
And I totally overlooked that at the bottom of the case study, we actually had that financial data available. I really do, I'm not sure if I'll have to crunch the numbers now and kind of get my head wrapped around that before I do my own written case analysis. I'm not sure if it's financially viable at a 60%. What do you call it?
Contribution margin.
No, 60% of their inventory is rented out.
Oh, right.
Whatever you call that key metric. I'm not sure if that is enough to sustain their business model, especially since they have limited shelf life.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at their website, and they have kind of like a warm season and a cold season. So I don't know. But yeah, I would still say they need to focus primarily on improving their services and what's going on behind the scenes, and then also their abandon rate on their shopping carts. That's something that, especially in an online scenario, you really need to put focus on. You cannot let customers abandon their shopping carts. That's a lost sale. They've already committed. They've committed once they clicked and added something to their shopping cart. So what makes them not complete the purchase? And they really need to focus on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I looked up just because I was kind of interested. I'd heard that you know, a lot of new ventures can fail just because of just scaling activity. So I kind of looked up some reports on it. So they did, I guess, a study by Berkeley and Stanford, and they did like 3,200 high growth startups. So 92 of those failed, and it said 74 of those 92% that failed, or 74%, I should say, was because of premature scaling. So I thought that was interesting how this was
So repeat that again. You said 92% of businesses failed, and 70 plus of them failed because they couldn't scale.
because of premature scaling.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Finland,
Because they scaled too soon, or they
Yep.
couldn't scale.
Yeah, they scaled. Which I thought was interesting because that's exactly what the question is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
Can you send us a link to that?
Yeah, no problem.
That would be good ammunition for the analysis.
Yeah, for sure. Well, sounds good. Is there
All
anything
right.
before we wrap it up here?
No, I think I'm good.
Me too.
Well, sounds good. You guys have a good rest of your week.
All right, you
You guys
too.
are awesome. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this group. I'm serious. You guys blow almost every group that I've been in out of the water. Thanks so much.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'll try to get my technology skills a little bit better here.
That's all right. Hey, so wasn't there another member supposed to be in our group?
There was, but I haven't heard from her, so I don't know.
I emailed
Yeah,
her
I've been.
times, but I never heard from her either. So
Yeah.
when he emails us, we'll just say it's us three, and
Right. Yeah.
okay.
Sounds good. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
Good.